Excellency Mustafa Mohammed, outgoing chairperson of the EU Commission, Chief Obasanjo. He forgot to mention that Chief Obasanjo came to Mekelle 8 times. And of course with him also came drones. So we're lucky that Chief Obasanjo came 8 times, and it gave us the opportunity to at least stop the drones. And that, I believe, is what it means to silence the guns. And once again, I would like to thank the AU and its people for taking the opportunity to take ownership of the process. And I also would like to take the opportunity to reflect that I wish this was a moment would take to thank each other, greet each other, that we have accomplished everything when it comes to not just only silencing the guns in Tigray, but also carrying out all the objectives that were particularly mentioned in the Pretoria Agreement. And I have every reason to believe that with continued engagement, we'll still have the opportunity to make sure that what the AU, by way of slogan, says African solutions to African problems, is indeed a reality. And I look forward to being part of that process. And we still have a long way to go before we can rest on our laurels. But I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you here, Chief Obasanjo, Uhuru Kenyatta, Madam Fuzile, my friend Al Haji. He's bragging that he wasn't intimidated, but whatever I did and whatever he did, at least gave us reason to believe that something could be done under the auspices of the EU. And as my friend Gideon here, a stickler for details, he wasn't just a justice minister. He was the guy who gave us a run for your money, as it were. But looking back on Pretoria, all I can see is the first experience I had. Commissioner Bankole was telling me what the engagement looked like with Minister Pandor. The first impression we had was we were kept in the DIRCO office. We're not even allowed to go out of that particular premise, not even for a walk. So I felt like we were being forced into some kind of I mean, we're expected to cap up a solution, or else you'll not be allowed to go. But again, the continued engagement after 10 days gave rise to the kind of conclusion that I particularly am proud we have achieved. Silencing the guns in 2013 is, I thought when this was launched, I thought this was too much of a task. I have reason to believe that silencing the guns should not have been too much of a task. And it's obvious that what we did in Pretoria clearly showed that as long as there is commitment on both sides, it's not entirely difficult to silence the guns. But unfortunately, silencing the guns is not the end of the story. And AU leadership, I clearly, one of the lessons that you've been alluding to is AU leadership. AU leadership is good, but it's not entirely good enough, because yes, finance is one thing, FTB has been doing this and that, but for our engagements to go beyond the slogans, for our engagements to result in the kinds of outcomes that we all would cherish, the engagement of other parties, as you have rightly pointed out, is quite critical. One of the things that I should point out at this point in time is that although the observers were relevant in many ways, the fact that they were not there as guarantors of the agreement has had its own negative impact on the speed with which the implementation of the Pretoria Agreement was taken care of. And of course, it's a good thing that the specificities and complexities of the problem in Tigray, or other conflicts for that matter, was something that needed to be taken into account. Simply because one of the issues I had was AU people was, this conflict was in Addis Ababa, the capital of Africa. And any conflict that happens in the northern part of Ethiopia, which is cradle of civilization and which is the most integral part of the Ethiopian civilization, should not have been left for people to sort out. Of course, the AU should have played and should continue to play a much stronger and much nuanced role in addressing this issue, because any conflict in Ethiopia and any conflict in the capital of Africa simply would end up upending any peace process and any process to address the issue of silencing the guns in the entire Africa region. And of course, taking into account the specificities and the complexity of the problem, I think it's a lesson we'll learn, but I hope and expect that lesson to be taken seriously. And for AU, now that Commissioner Bankole has a renewed mandate, will take into account more seriously than ever. The fact that the observers were not guarantors has its own has caused its own problems, but still we have to continue to engage the people who have the best interest of Ethiopia, the best interest of Africa in mind. Whether or not they are the ones who are going to foot the bill or not is secondary as far as we're concerned. Another point I would like to raise, the scope of the cessation of hostilities agreement is about silencing of the guns, but it should go beyond that. We still have issues that cannot be taken care of unless there is a continued engagement. There are external actors involved in the conflict, and whatever we do is not going to take away from the equation that there are other parties involved in this conflict. And unfortunately for us, they are not party to the Pretoria Agreement. And the kind of continued engagement by the international community is going to remain critical. And I think this is something we should always be mindful of. Peace agreements are not, as you have rightly pointed out, are not an end, but they are a means to an end. I still consider what Madame Fuzile had to say about the involvement of women in the negotiation process. The most important contribution Madame Fuzile had was not her presence as a woman, but more importantly, her continued advocacy of the cause of women and children. And I would like to once again call upon the AU, the international community, to still consider the kind of suffering women and children in Tigray have to go through right now as we speak. And it's not just about the presence of women members in the negotiating team that matters. Of course, it matters a lot. But the most important focus for us should be whether the issue of women and children is given the kind of attention it deserves, and richly so. There are a number of issues we haven't yet addressed. DDR, most of the focus of the international community was the first D in the DDR process, the disarmament process. But the most important aspect for us is whether we disarm should not be the end. Whether we demobilize and reinstate the people who have been combatants because they had a cause to believe in is something that should be taken into account. And of course, the international community, the AU, should take this process seriously, and it should continue to press all of us to focus on this part of the Pretoria arrangement. But to conclude, I would say the most important focus should be the return of IDPs and the return of IDPs to the constitutionally mandated territories of Tigray. And the Constitution clearly requires that we address this issue and address it in a manner that ensures sustainable peace and security in the entire region. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank not just Musa Faki Mohammed and Commissioner Bankole and Chief of Basanjo and Uhuru Kenyatta and Madam Fuzile, but my friend Al-Haj, who had difficulty taking my phone calls because I'll be making all kinds of threats, but we'll continue to engage the AU, our panel members, and those who are going to take over as the heads of the AU Commission, and more importantly, we'll continue to engage our friends Gideon, and hopefully he's going to learn more diplomatic language than he used to when we were in Pretoria, when he was obviously pushing the envelope every now and then. You would understand that, and we'll definitely remain the course. We'll definitely continue to commit ourselves to the cause of peace, and we'll call on the international community, the AU, the federal government, and all parties involved to make sure that the women and children who are suffering needlessly in squalid conditions in IDP camps are returned to where they belong. Thank you once again.